Letters from the front. Amongst the Victorians severely wounded in the recent disaster at Wilmansrust was Private Alfred John Newton, the eldest son of Mr. and Mrs. W. Newton of Boggy Creek near Kyneton, and a nephew of Mr. and Mrs. H. Burnell of Simpson Street, Kyneton. This is from the Kyneton Guardian, dated the 20th of June 1901. He was 22 years of age and previous to going to the war had been engaged at straw pressing work at Mr. Watson's Highbank Hill Farm. After being rejected on applying for inclusion in the 4th Contingent, the Imperial Bushmen, and also as regarded the 5th Contingent, 1st Division, he was amongst the 500 selected as the 2nd Division of the 5th Contingent. His cousin, Mr. Louise Burnell, received a letter from him only last week. It bore the date the 1st of May 1901, but did not state from whence it was written. The writer stated that he had not been well during the past week. It was rather rough work, but he was pretty well colonised. He had been in 5 engagements up to the time of writing, and they were expecting at any time to meet De Wet, Botha and Steyn all together, and so anticipated a terrible fight, which he thought would pretty well finish the war. He'd been nearly shot on one occasion. He was riding along the bottom of a big kopje, scouting, when he rode within 300 yards of the Boers, who all fired on him. Bullets whistled all round him, and one went through the shoulder of his tunic and into his horse's nose. Needless to say, he put spurs to his horse and got out of range as quickly as possible, but it puts a queer feeling through a fellow the first time he got into action, he remarks. He had, however, got quite used to it now and didn't take any notice. About 100 were absent from the regiment, sick, wounded or missing. The commanding officer thinks a terrible lot of Australians, and the 5th Contingent was said to be the best that had come from Australia. They were given the roughest and most dangerous work to do, but he would not have missed the chance of going over, although he didn't think he would stop there, and would be quite satisfied if he got through it all right, when his 12 months are up, to get back to Victoria. He had seen many men over there that he knew. It was terrible to see the lads when they got shot. After a battle there were some men wounded and some dead. The place is nothing but a mass of graves. There are graves everywhere you go or look, and horses and mules are laying dead in all directions. The smells are enough to give all the soldiers the fever. He was scribbling his letter on his saddle whilst his horse was having a feed. They might be fired on at any instant, and so had to be watchful, as they might be called on at any moment. The letter concluded with the jocular remark that the writer's friend should see him with his whiskers, as he had not shaved since he had been over there, and a request to be kindly remembered to all at home and friends in Kyneton. A Malmesbury soldier. The following letter was received on Wednesday by Town Clerk W. Lambert from Private Tom Lynch of Malmesbury, who went to South Africa as a member of the 5th Contingent. Private Lynch, it will be remembered, was in the Victorian camp which was attacked by the Boers on June the 12th, and on which occasion Private A. Newton of Reedsdale Junction was wounded. Fortunately, Private Lynch was not injured. He fully states the sad affair in his letter. Middelburg, June the 26th, 1901. Quote, "Just a few lines to let you know how I've been getting on since I left Victoria. Up to the 12th of June we had no fighting. We found a few snipers now and then. We were all of the opinion that the war was over, as we could never find more than 20 or 30 Boers together at one time. It was a few snipers that shot Captain Kelly and Lieutenant Johnson. We could hear the Boer rifles, but we could not see them. No doubt the Victorian people would be surprised when they read of the cutting up our poor boys got at Wilmansrust on the 12th of June. But no one was more surprised than ourselves. We were under General Beetson, who had charge since we arrived here. We have done nothing yet, with the exception of capturing something like £96,000 worth of stock. By stock I mean sheep, mules, horses, wagons and oxen. Whenever we had a chance of a brush with the enemy, until the 12th of June, when our general sent 300 of us to where some 1,000 Boers were supposed to be. We got to our destination all right on the 12th of June. Of course, you have read in the Melbourne papers, before this letter reaches you, what occurred on that tragic occasion. For such a mistake involving such sad loss of life and limb, no one but the General was to blame, knowing that there were 1,000 Boers in the vicinity and sending 300 men right into the midst of them. No other general in South Africa would think of such a thing. We have been here now 5 months, and we have lost more men in that short period than all the other Victorian contingents put together, simply because we have got a bad leader. We stay here for a week to get fresh horses for those shot in that sad catastrophe, and also get fresh clothes, etc. And try opinion is that we don't have a different general like General Beetson, that the 5 Victoria Mounted Rifles will refuse to go with him. We want a man like Colonel Tom Price to lead us, and until we get a man of his stamp, we will be no good here. I will try and give you an idea of the Wilmansrust affair. We were sent out to Wilmansrust under Major Morris, an English officer, and numbered all told 300 men. Tuesday we did not travel at all. Wednesday we marched up when 300 Boers opened fire on the camp, none of the Boers at this time being further than 50 yards range. You can imagine what excitement this caused in the camp, as we were not prepared for the attack, as some of us were having our tea and others were cooking their breakfast, as we were to start on the march again very early in the morning. The suddenness and severity of the Boer fire can be imagined from the fact that out of the 300-odd horses we had with us, 247 were laying dead next morning, some with as many as 10 bullet holes to them. 18 of the Victoria Mounted Rifles were killed on the spot, 2 were fatally wounded and died next morning, and 38 others were more or less seriously wounded. It's marvellous how a man escaped, and in fact only for the protection of our horses. I believe no man would have been alive today out of what was the whole 300 men. The men are on the inside of the horse lines at night, and so were greatly protected by them from the deadly rifle fire. The Boers opened fire on the east side of the camp, and out of the 75 horses on that side, only 3 were alive next morning. Never to my dying day will I forget the sight the camp presented next morning. It was terrible to look on. Private A. Newton of Reedsdale Junction was wounded in 2 places, but neither wound was very severe. He expects to join us in a fortnight's time. I can well imagine what the feeling in Victoria was like when the news of our disaster reached them. We have all plenty of tucker. The only fault I have to find is the way we are officered. We're having good weather ever since we arrived, having had only half a day's rain. As I have no more news, I will conclude, hoping yourself and all the Malmesbury people are enjoying the best of health. As it leaves me at present, I remain yours, T.F. Lynch. Private S.P. Harper of the Kyneton Observer, the 1st of March 1902. The Kyneton boys of the 1st Commonwealth contingent arrived safely as far as Albany. One of the number says the food, as a rule, is good, but the puddings served up on Sunday night have been used for cannonballs for deadly effect. 11 of the stowaways were successful in passing the medical test and passed into the ranks. On Sunday, whilst divine service was being held below, on deck a glove contest was going on. Hammocks are not the best thing in the world to sleep in, as you are likely to be dumped on the floor at any time. Lieutenants Sanford, Thompson and Troopers Kerr and Harper desired to be remembered to all and sundry. The latter in his letter winds up, quote, "I am yours, very, very, very seasick." Okay, I made it to Donald. I reckon this place must be hot 360 days of the year. It's flat, it's dusty. There's a rail line that come through. Keeps the town alive, I suppose, but it seems dead. It seems baking and... but that's... I do have a memory of Donald. This is the Boer War monument behind me, by the way, which is a little, shall I put it, underwhelming. So, when I used to go to Africa, as mentioned in those 80s videos I did recently, I got interested in animal conservation, especially where Dad lived. There was a Save the Rhino project, and mainly it was the merchandise, the t-shirts and that. To be honest, I think I probably donated a bit of money here and there. So when I came back to Australia, I was always on the lookout for Save the Rhino, and because of that I got involved in other animal conservation and animal protection, that sort of thing. So don't worry, we're getting to how I came to Donald one night years ago. So the first thing I got involved with was a campaign to get the animals out of zoos, lions, tigers, elephants. Didn't think it was much of a life for them travelling around in trailers and then being taunted and teased with whips and hoops and whatever. So we started protesting circuses, and there was quite a bit of agitation from the carnies. I can tell you, there was a bit of pushing, shoving. Quite enjoyed that. And anyway, because of that, I came to know about the Stop the Ducks, the duck hunting. Now, I'll have to be careful around here because they're probably avid duck hunters in Donald. But it came to my attention that there was going to be, that every time the season started in Victoria, there was a coalition led by a guy called Donald Levy. I'm not sure his first name, but Levy. So they would organise people to go to the lakes to protect, to try and save some ducks. So that's how I came to know about it. Now, I'd never been to Donald before, and we're probably talking about the mid-90s. And my friend Robin, I wish I could find her again. She's another one I need to apologise for my behaviour. Big, tall Dutch woman, or girl that I was going out with for a while. She just happened to maybe ring on the night I was going, or the day I was going or something, and she had nothing to do. I said, do you want to come with me and keep me company for the drive? So she came along. So it's a bloody long way from Glen Iris up to here. We must have left at about, I reckon 9 or 10 at night from my flat, and we drove all the way through the night to get up here. You know, you had to be here for dawn. That's when the carnage began. So yeah, we drove, we found a place where all the protesters were. There were lots of bogans in, you know, camo with shotguns, and yeah, beer swilling mongrels ready to slaughter anything that was in the air, you know. That was the thing, that these clowns were bringing down swans and all sorts of native wildlife. Well, fortunately, it looks like finally the duck season's going to be finished. Like the other states are going to outlaw, put an end to this barbarity, you know. But anyway, so on that morning, yeah, we got there. It was real cold, it was foggy, there was mist hanging over the surface of the lake. And I don't think Robin got in, but I think I bought some gumboots and I had shorts on. The lake was cold, it was freezing wet. And as the light, you know, turned from pink to shades of light blue, dawn, there was an hour where the season opened, and all around the lake it started to ring out, bang, bang, bang. It was like a war zone. It was like the Boer War. You know, there were shotguns all flying up. There were these clowns in boats out there shooting. So I started wading out to bring in the wounded birds, or the dead birds. That was our job, to try and rescue wounded and dead birds. So I remember wading towards one. This guy and his mate had shot this bird. It plopped on top of the lake. I waded towards it to grab it, and they yelled out to me, "Save this one, you fucker," and shot the bird to pieces in front of me. And about 20 or 30 feet away, they fired a fucking shotgun, which left just feathers floating on the surface. So I had a few words with him. But anyway, when I got back to the car, I somehow managed to lose or lock the keys in the boot or something. So I had to take the back seat apart to crawl into the boot to get the keys, and it was freezing cold. I don't know how long Robin and I spent in Donald, maybe a couple of hours. We probably left here at about 10 and drove all the way back to Glen Iris. So that's my Donald story for you. So we've come up here today for the Boer War monument. There's a terrific World War One over there, and I reckon they've demolished the original Boer War monument from here, and they've stuck up this granite thing behind me, which I'll show you, which is into my mind a disgrace, a disgrace. Yeah, so I reckon they've demolished the original Boer War monument and put this up. They've got like an avenue here with crosses for World War One, World War Two. Donald men that lost their lives, I suppose. Anyway, over there, that's probably the Catholic Church, St. Mary's, I think. Some sort of bowling rink here, but I'll show you the monuments. Oops. I can get up. Oh, bloody hell. And then after that, we're off to Charlton. So you can see that's the World War One monument. It's pretty impressive. And over there where they've dug all that stuff up, I wonder if the Boer War one wasn't there originally, but actually, now I think about it, it was probably outside the post office or something. And they dismantled it, and this is what they do now. So if you can even read it, it says Donald RSL, with assistance of grant from the DVA, wishes to honour these district volunteers who served South African War, 1899 to 1902. I mean, you can barely read the names. They did it in gold and the sun hits it. And it says, to all Australians who served there, this is our duty to remember them. You can't really read the names. They should have put it in black. So as I said, I reckon down outside the post office, I don't know if Donald even has a town hall, probably not. That's where I reckon the original Boer War monument would have been, and they've incorporated them into this. You see that? It's like an avenue. So I reckon that's what's happened. And that's okay. I don't think I've ever been. Oh look, here's a mortar. As I said, great garden art, or even a can holder, some ice in there. That's pretty cool. So yeah, we'll go over to Charlton. I think that's about, I don't know, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes from here. And then we'll make our way back to Bendigo, and this will probably be the last road trip I do before South Africa. And to be honest, I don't know what I'll do when I get back from South Africa, if I'll continue these or not.